Mr. Stanley, reel 3.
It seemed an eternity, but in actual fact it was only about half a minute, and suddenly a voice said, "What the bloody hell are you doing down there, John?" And I looked up and I saw Val Allerton, my section sergeant, looking at me. I said, "Lots of Germans around." He said, "Where?" I got out of the hole, there wasn't a single German there. He said, "You've been imagining things." So I showed him the 2 holes where the 2 grenades had exploded, and he accepted that and said, "I believe you. You're not a fool, you're not a coward. You were lucky that I saw you. I saw some shooting. I had some shooting going on down there. Didn't know who it was. By the time I got here, there was nobody except you in a hole." However, I went back into the lines, and I thought it was a very funny business. It's gone down into the history of the company, John Stanley in the Foxhole. But there were other less unpleasant episodes, such as the patrol. We went out from the house, again patrol, and we were cornered in a Dutch house somehow. I just, by the back door, looking out sideways, and I couldn't see any Germans, so I went back into the house, just my body, just going back and light a cigarette. And the moment I had cleared the path, suddenly there burst of machine gun fire, just exactly the spot where I had been. So the German had seen me and he aimed, and as he was on the point of pulling a trigger, and there's 3 situations when you fire a gun. You see, you aim, you fire. So on stage 2, just going to pull the trigger, I went back, so I didn't catch it. But it did shake me quite considerably. So we went upstairs and we felt we wanted to get back to the lines. And we realized we were cut off from the back as well. Sorry, from both sides. We were really only half a street away from our own position. Fortunately, I had some phosphorus grenades. We went into the back garden, and we knew roughly that the German 38 machine gun was only about 20 yards away. They had moved forward, of course. They weren't there all the time. And as they were firing at something else, God knows what it was, we could locate them. And I threw one of my precious phosphorus, I think it's called number 40 grenades at them. It didn't really hit them, but it hit a tree above them. And the phosphorus was pouring down on them. And there was an almighty noise, and we looked, and we saw 2 Germans absolutely on fire, trying to beat out the flames. And it wasn't a very pleasant sight, because they really light. They're closing it, caught fire, they had to beat it out. So we put them out of their misery, which was only a humane thing to do under the circumstances. We did lose one of our men there, unfortunately. So there are all sorts of episodes at Arnhem, or like the call of nature. Val Allerton was going to come around at 10 o'clock in the morning, and he didn't turn up, so I went into the yard of the house, number 20 Oosterweg, I think it was called. I also remember the house. And I was just obeying a law of nature in the garden. I had my trousers down, I'll be frank with you. And suddenly I saw a German walk in with his mitre round his shoulder, and yet he had not seen me. And I couldn't do nothing. I couldn't shout, I couldn't scream. And I thought I really reached the end, because the next moment he'd see me in fire and kill me. And just like a film again, Val Allerton walked round to the other side. He saw me, and I only gave a message with my eyes. I gave a message with my eyes to the German. He understood, and he shot him on the spot. Again, it was touch and go. I can't understand why I've been so lucky there, but it's a situation you can't really put into words, only happens once. Well, things happen every day at Arnhem. There was the Dutch chap who came round every day with apples and sweets. He was a really nice man, and he always wanted to know how we're getting on and what we're doing. He was a great guy. But on one day, the people from downstairs, the man, the owner of the house, was in the room as well. He saw this man, and after he'd gone, he told us that this chap was a Dutch Nazi. And under no circumstances should we have anything to do with him, because he's a leading member of the local police, in fact. So we discussed it among ourselves. We felt that something had to be done about it if he came again. So next time he came, we asked him what he was doing, and he said, well, I'm just an ordinary, I live here across so and so, and so I said, oh, do you speak German? He says, no, I don't speak German. I said, you quite sure? No. So I asked him in German again, do you speak German? He said, no. You only do with Germans? No. So we searched him, and we found German papers on him, German letters and messages that he'd written for the Germans, giving information about our location. Well, we decided that we had no choice. We held not a trial, we held a little council among the three of us. It was very late in the proceedings, almost on the last day, and we felt if we let him go, he would go back to the Germans. He probably has given them information already, which must have helped the Germans to locate some of the houses in which we were in. We had no idea, but he was definitely a spy, a Dutchman, working for the Germans. So we decided to shoot him. We do lots for it, and one of us shot him. We gave him a chance beforehand. We told him we were going to shoot him. We told him why, and we shot him.
How did he react when he heard he was going to be shot?
He broke. He just went to pieces. He begged for mercy. We said no.
Did he confess?
He admitted it. Yeah. We did not bring the family up. We didn't tell him how we knew, but we showed him the papers, his own papers in his pocket, which were in reasonably good German. I didn't enjoy it.
How old was he?
33, 38, 36. Afterwards, we heard he was very much a leading Nazi.
Any other incidents you can recollect?
No, not really. I think at the moment I can only say that these are the highlights, the most pleasant aspect of the whole affair. After all, we didn't know then what sort of strategical situation we had got ourselves into, or how the whole thing failed, not because of our own inactivity or what we didn't do, but the intelligence work was incomplete. The work had been done by our own intelligence people was accurate, but 21 Army Group had not accepted some of the reports which the Dutch had given them as well. No, I think it was an interesting episode. It just showed me that if it's endurance, you can get through, and a bit of luck.
Now, can you tell me what happened when I interrupted you with the narrative stopping at the orders to withdraw? Can you take the narrative on from there?
Well, we were told then that in half an hour we would restore, and we have to move off in a certain direction by holding each other's tails, so to say. We pitched out, and it was very precisely spelled out. We had maps, but they weren't awfully good. So I told my chaps that in half an hour we would restore, we would get out through the back door, we'd go over the fence, through a hole that had blown into the wall. There was a big brick wall separating us from another area, and there's another 12-foot brick wall I felt we were too exposed to climb over it with a ladder, so I'd blown a hole into it. I had enough explosives to do it. Through the hole towards the Hartenberg place, and from there we would join the main body of those who made their way down to the river. It was bucketing with rain, it was pitch dark, it was slithery, more or less what you said right at the beginning. Was it wet? Yes, it was sort of like glue, the ground. And the nearer we got to the river, the worse it got. Not so much of the German firing, they were firing somehow across the area, but the Germans did not know what was going on. We had an idea what point to make for, because every 60 seconds they found a tracer round from 10 miles away to give us an idea, to get our bearings. We got to the river in the end. There was a queue, several queues, and nobody really knew what was going to happen. And Canadians came along, and their ducks are convertible amphibian vehicles, and they picked up a certain number every time, and the rest had to wait. And some of them got waterlogged, some got shot to pieces. So when it came to the end, there were more boats. For some of us, those who were left behind. And those who could swim tried to swim and got across. Now, it's not a question of going across the river. It took me nearly an hour to get across and walk back.
What was the width of the river?
I don't know. It was pitch dark. It seemed ages. It got a very strong current. But I think I must have walked back a couple of miles on the other side. I would say 200 or 300 yards.
Was there much of a current?
Well, yes, there was a current. You see, the Rhine sort of splits into three parts. I'm not sure. One's called the Veld, one's called the...
Lek?
The lake. It's a lake. It was a lake. Lek, L-E-W-K, L-W-E-K. You're at the lake. And the lake is probably not the worst of them. But there was quite a few little sort of islands were in the middle. All I know is that I had to put my pants on, and I put my wallet into my red berry. I dumped my airborne tin hat. We didn't have a tin hat. I thought it was plastic, a special tin hat. I dumped it. I had kept my airborne berries, put my money and possibly my cigarettes, obviously, cigarettes into the berry, and jumped in. And I never saw any of these people again afterwards who stayed behind.
Were you a good swimmer in those days?
Oh, yeah. It was a question of being drifted. I had no shoes or anything. I just went in. It seemed quite warm. It wasn't very difficult to swim. The difficulty was to get across.
Did you see any of your comrades on the way across?
No. I made my way back again to the point after the traces were still going over every 30 seconds from a long way away, 21st Army. So I knew I had to go along, walk along the river and walked and walked and walked. Sometimes I got into mud right up to my neck again. Some little small, they're called polders, I think, sort of got into them. And then gradually when I knew I was nearly there, I could hear voices. And I could hear motors, engines roaring away. I thought I must have got this. I went cross country. And I came to a Dutch farmhouse. Some of our chaps were there, and the Dutch talking to them. And I explained to them I had no clothes, I had nothing. So they gave me some old clothes, and I joined the rest. We walked for about a couple of miles until we came to a sort of staging place. I think we probably had an hour there. It seemed much longer because I went to sleep. Somebody woke me up and said, if you don't come now, you'll be left behind, so come on. So we got onto this lorry, or God knows. I was too sleepy really to care much. And we were taken to Nijmegen, to a school, and fitted out with new uniform, and was back home. Not from Nijmegen, no. I think we went to Belgium. Went to Belgium, Brussels Aerodrome, and flown back to Melton Mowbray in Leicestershire.
Were there any after effects for you?
No. Lost a lot of weight, that's all.
You mentioned the Dutch spy. Was that the only occasion where you suspected Dutch fifth columnists?
Yes, it was the only time. We knew there were more than that, because we went on a water tower once, and right to the top of the water tower, when we saw the glider with the Lancasters coming in, being shot down, and I thought it was very odd. And there's a little room on top of the water tower, somebody's office, and it appeared that the chap who was minding this water tower was a German of a sort, or German spy, because some of his notes were in German, and some of the material he had there were issued by the German authorities, and vaguely I felt that we had disturbed a German spy. Spy is not the word, a German collaborator, obviously. You know, we're collaborators. Until we got there, they weren't spies, they were part of the setup.
Apart from these instances, did the Dutch people seem to be relieved that they were in the process of getting rid of the Germans?
Yes and no. They were, of course, relieved. The Dutch were also on our side. But the tragedy was, in the beginning, the Dutch felt it was the end of the war. And we had to assure them it would not necessarily be the end. And as the days went on, they felt terribly let down because they had a feeling now that we'd be going and the Germans would come back and it would all seem to be for nothing. And we could not dispel their doubts in any way whatever. We couldn't make them believe that it's okay somehow we're going to stay. We knew we wouldn't stay and they knew we wouldn't stay. That was the worst part of it. A heart-rending situation. That's why we asked them to be very careful, because whatever they said to us after this episode with the spy, whatever they said to us, be careful, because you don't know who's watching you, so keep to yourself and keep away from us.
Were you able to hold conversations of any length with them?
The Dutch?
Yes.
Oh yes, the majority of them spoke quite good German. I think somehow their German was better than their English. In that particular part, obviously they spoke a lot of German, and it was the first language at school still, the first foreign language at school. No difficulty talking to the Dutch at all.
Did they tell you anything about what they'd experienced under German occupation?
They did tell us, but it was more or less what we had known already. We didn't quite know how bad it had been, but they had been suffering, and the tragedy was they felt they're a neutral country. I mean, after all, we declared war on the Germans. We were at war with the Germans, but the Dutch were invaded in cold blood. The Dutch were bombed, and their country had been ruined by a foreign power, whilst they had expected to be nothing but bystanders.